All right. Well, welcome to another episode from DSORN at live at ADLM. This particular episode, we're going to be talking about how panel stewardship transforms testing strategies. My name is Chad Powell, and I'm joined here today by Dr. Michelle Tabb, Chief Scientific Officer at DSORN, and Dr. Kaisha Gonzalez, Regional Director of Scientific Affairs here at DSORN. Dr. Tabb, Dr. Gonzalez, thanks for joining me here today. Appreciate it.
Hello, Chad.
Hi, Chad.
How are you? So before we kick off into what we're talking about, because I'm extremely excited to get into this, maybe you want to just describe a little bit what you two do here at DSORN.
Okay, yeah, I'll start. So I'm the Chief Scientific Officer for the Molecular Division of DSORN. I've been with the company actually totally 20 years, but I've had different roles. But lately, I lead the Scientific Affairs team. We are involved in innovation. We are involved in new product development. We are involved in customer connections, studies, and scientific advisory boards.
Yeah.
I think I covered almost everything. So a little bit of everything.
Checked a lot of boxes there.
Checked a lot of boxes. And Kaisha, you can talk about your role too.
I'm a regional director, and I've been with the company at least 14 years. So as Michelle mentioned, we are scientific affairs, so we pretty much do a lot of the innovations, strategic. We support commercial from the clinical and scientific side. We do research and studies. I mean, we do touch a lot of the different departments, and we are kind of like that bridge that connects the customer and connects then the internal and external companies. So, yeah.
Well, I'll first say this. I thought I was here for a long time at 8 or 9 years, but apparently I'm the most junior in the room. So, but before we kick into the topic I want to get into, I think we need to start a little bit more foundationally. So syndromic testing, right, played a huge impact in diagnostics for the past, over 10 years, let's just say. And looking back on that, from your guys' perspective, what problems do you think syndromic testing solved? And then was there anything maybe you learned through that process that could have been impacted by syndromic testing?
So I'll dig into this one first. And so before syndromic testing, if a patient had a set of symptoms, really, there were only like singleplex or maybe miniplex assays available. And after those were negative, you'd have to go on to the next test and the next test. So I think the patient journey to getting a result in the clinician's hands was probably taking much, much longer. And so syndromic panels were really a wonderful thing at that time, because with a single patient specimen, you could get more information. Absolutely great. But at the same time now, I think the pendulum has started to swing back, because it's not appropriate to get all of those target answers on every single patient. So that's kind of the scenario as I see it, like just to give a little bit of background before we lead into more. So Kaisha, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, I will add, thinking about the challenges that were 10 years ago, right? If we think about, as Michelle mentioned, the narrow testing, the sequential testing, at that point, patient had it, there was a lot of delays, misdiagnosis. So the risk was pretty much overtreating, because you needed to get back to that patient right away, treat it as fast as they can, waiting for results. Now, of course, we are coming to syndromic panels where we have broad, more faster turnaround time, more diagnostic yield. However, I will say there is also a risk that has a little bit shifted into that sense, not only from the misdiagnosis that previously was there, but the mature of now diagnostic stewardship, the antimicrobial stewardship. I think we are in the era of too much information, I will say. Abundance of information, too much information that leads to clinical noise, that may also lead to clinical uncertainty and trying to interpret a lot of the things. And this is where Michelle mentioned really interesting is like, there's a new philosophy coming up, right? That possible shifting that syndromic fix mentality into a possibility of flexibility, be more intentional into that syndromic space.
Absolutely. I completely agree. When you think through it, and what I've seen is syndromic testing obviously plays an important role and kind of built for the last 10 years, but we're at this tipping point where things need to shift for the next 10 years. And that's why I'm very excited to kind of start talking a little bit into here around Liaison Plex, right? That was our goal with this project and this platform coming to market. So with that, launch of Liaison Plex, we really introduced this new concept to syndromic testing with customization, flex testing. So just to level set here, would one of you mind just kind of explaining how flex testing works and is giving laboratories back more control over these tests?
Okay. You want me to? I'll take the first shot at it, and then you
go
can
for
add
it.
in. So instead of having to test and then get reports on, say, 20 or more targets from a patient sample, the way flex testing works is that the ordering clinician or the laboratory has an option. Of those 20 targets or however many are on a panel, a subset of those can be chosen, and only those can be reported out on that patient sample. And so that's in its simplistic form. But there's a lot of iterations possible on it. So, for example, in respiratory testing, say that a patient has already had a flu A, flu B, RSV, and COVID test run on a different platform, but yet the patient is still extremely ill and the physician wants to go further. Well, patient sample now can be run on a platform like ours, and other targets can be chosen, not having to repeat that testing. It's one scenario. But you also can adjust to clinical appropriateness. So while an immunocompromised patient might need every single target on that panel, maybe an otherwise healthy patient who just has a travel history just wants a subset. Or maybe you want to adjust the panel such that you test a first core set of targets first, like 7 or 11, whatever it might be, a magic number. And then if those are negative, and only if they're negative, go back to the instrument, have additional data analyzed, and report more. So honestly, it's really opened up so many different possibilities for how labs want to use these panels.
Yeah, I do like, Michelle, that you provided some really good examples. And I think your examples emphasize the importance of the flexibility philosophy, right? We're talking about that these fixed panels, you're testing regardless of the clinical relevance for those patients. Not every patient needs everything, right? Not every patient will have the same clinical scenario, and it's not relevant. So I think with this philosophy of the flexibility allows you then to, as Michelle mentioned, right, pick and choose the targets that are more clinical relevant based on that clinical presentation, based on that patient. So that helps not only to provide the best diagnostic yield, but also avoid that diagnostic uncertainty, the having too much information that, we're talking about statistics. I love statistics.
Yeah.
She's an expert.
Positive predictive value
Yeah.
is one thing that you can have the most sensitive assay, 99%, but positive predictive value can give you the false positivity to 50% if you use it in the wrong population, in the wrong patient. So the idea is you avoid going into those situations where then not providing the best services for the patient, and not even services for your clinicians, because they have to navigate those situations when it comes to figure it out what this test or what this result means in this patient. So having context, it's so important, as well as then trying to use that philosophy of the flexibility into a more intentional testing that I like to use that intentional testing. And it's important to also clarify, right, because we are talking about flexibility and between fixed panels and in our panels, but the idea is not only restrict information for clinicians. I think that's a misconception, right? We are not sacrificing comprehensive data or results for those patients. We are being more intentional in what we are selecting to have the most diagnostic yield and then the best clarity for then possible management for that patient. So that's the idea between the flexibility with our flex.
Yeah, I love that comment too, because I think that sometimes can get misconstrued a bit, right? We are trying to bring out very broad panels, but it's when you deploy those targets is kind of this different concept and approach to that. You don't always need every single target. And we see that often, obviously, with now the launch of GI and respiratory. And that's been the most exciting piece for me to see is labs thinking through this process. We all had ideas of how this was going to be utilized in a real world setting, but then you actually got it in their hands. And we've seen people kind of fit us in there more appropriately, like you mentioned, with a quadplex assay to the rest of the panel. And we've also seen people completely refine and change their workflows, their algorithms to optimize, give more accessibility to testing, but do it in a more intentional way. So love that comment. And, I'll take you back a little history. We launched this product on June 3rd, 2024. Only know that because I was thinking about it for years leading up to it. A respiratory,
Yes.
And the platform itself too. So we have some, historic context behind it now, especially. So as you guys are interacting with current customers, even prospective customers, what have you been hearing is working well? And let's get it out there. What maybe has been an area of which they were hoping for improvements or changes?
So actually, this flex concept is really resonating with the community because finally they have a tool. And everybody has a different idea about what they want to do for stewardship initiatives, and everybody has different patient populations. So finally, choices are not being made for these laboratories. They are actually able to choose for themselves. And it's not just based on the top slice of what were the most prevalent targets in the last 5 years and then stopping at a certain point. It's actually the most important targets in that symptomology, and then they can choose for themselves. And so this is one of the benefits that we've heard. And now let me tell you a challenge. So they design a panel. They now have decided maybe on a subset of targets that's important to them and a manner in which they're testing. But they've deliberately decided not to report out all the pathogens on the panel. Kayesha just mentioned there's positive predictive value considerations, inappropriate testing, et cetera. Now, if they're going from having all that information available as a full panel all the time, and suddenly they go into this really refined clinical appropriate mode, which is fantastic for many reasons, all of a sudden, they've said to us, hey, how do I know what I'm missing?
The fear of missing out.
Ooh,
Yes.
FOMO.
It's the FOMO,
FOMO.
exactly. So this is the practical situation that now we're faced with. So I don't know if you want to add any comments.
It's exactly that, like the FOMO, or they request more guidance. I think what right now, obviously, as Michelle mentioned, right, it's too much information, which is great. They wanted everything at that time. Now they want to refine, understand what are their stewardship initiatives that they're going through, but they need guidance. For them, it's just, I just want to make sure that I'm selecting the right targets, that I'm not missing outbreaks here and there, that I am choosing the right way of this panel for this particular population, this particular clinical scenario. So it's just about guidance and understanding, and to make sure that they are still providing the best care for those patients.
Absolutely. And you heard it so much, right? It's like I can design the perfect panel today, but what does that look like a year from now?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And, something that I always say is like my opinions get formulated by our customers, right? They know how to practice diagnostics way better than I do. So, and that's where it was really stemming of going, we know, you look at the first year we launched LIAISON Plex with respiratory. A lot of indication, a lot of people were going more viral heavy, and that was the year of the Mycoplasma and Bordetella outbreak that we didn't see. So, but the challenge is if you're not reporting those out, you don't have the prevalence to tell in real time. Now you have to rely on CDC data, news outlets, whatever it might be, to see, oh, maybe there's something else going on here. So with that, I think the part that I'm most excited about to get into, because we haven't done a lot of conversation around this yet, is ultimately this kind of concept and feedback from customers led us to developing a new LIAISON Plex prevalence software tool. So with that, with one of you want jumping in and kind of explaining what this tool is, why it is, and what does it do?
I mean, we can start again. The idea was behind of this prevalence software tool that everyone, from voice of customer, from even internally, we understood the need of it, right? The idea was then understanding that, as you mentioned, not all the national CDC information does provide a really overview of what's happening locally for a lot of the hospitals or customers that are using our software, our platform. So the idea with this software was to actually then, okay, can we then, in a more visually way, to provide customers the idea of helping them to navigate test utilization, understanding information from trendings and detection rates and all that in visually dashboard. The idea is to connect all that data they're gathering from either the targets that are selecting or not selecting in an ethical way, right? The identify information, aggregates of that information, then adding into the software, and the software beautifully just visualize everything that you pick and choose from those panels. And it's beautiful because it doesn't really just connect to one platform with one assay. It's pretty much, it should be universal for GI. It should be universal for even respiratory. And the idea is from there is you visualize everything from detection rate, including the targets that you're not selecting. And the idea with this is, since customers wanted guidance, right? Guidance in terms of whether if I'm missing something, they can visually now see whether or not they're missing anything. And the idea is then behind is if they have so much of this stewardship initiatives, not only from the diagnostic side, from the laboratory side, from the antimicrobial side, now they can do a panel stewardship type of way where they can optimize, refine, and then pivot of any targets that they can see during the data that are formulating, and then make more informed, more intentional panels and feel they're more comfortable that they are not missing outbreaks, that they are not missing anything for those patients.
If I can add to that too, especially during the mycoplasma outbreak that you mentioned, if this tool was in use and say the client was only running the viral targets, because bacterial targets are really associated with different symptomology, long-term cough illness really. But then in a de-identified way, they could have been tracking in the background with a tool like this and seeing little blips of positivity of Mycoplasma pneumoniae target coming up. And then because our panels are flexible, they could have gone back immediately, reconfigured their base panel, and in this outbreak situation, started reporting out Mycoplasma pneumoniae in addition to whatever other base targets.
Absolutely. I mean, I think even, both of you mentioned outbreaks. Think about cyclospora going on right now, right? I mean, O&P testing isn't something that's routinely deployed up front, right? You're looking for more of the routine community-acquired type pathogens. And so, it takes a minute to identify an outbreak, right? You got to see that, it's got to be diagnosed and reported. We know parasites oftentimes are underdiagnosed and underreported simply because of lengthy turnaround times, losing maybe the proficiency of O&P testing. So I think that's a perfect use example, as we launched GI of going, hey, look, there's more than just panel refinements too. It could be outbreak management.
Well, in the case of cyclospora, that organism sheds and it goes up and down and up and down. And actually for O&P, usually there's 2 or 3 stool collections that are required, and then it's up to that tech to spot it on the slide under the microscope. Whereas if you knew from your panel or your analysis with the prevalence software that it was lurking there in the background amongst what you were reporting or not, you could have added it back to your panel and had a quick, accurate, sensitive molecular result.
Absolutely.
And treated the patient.
Yeah, because you're seeing localized, your local data, your internal data in almost real time, obviously a little bit of a delay there, but you don't have to wait anymore for it to hit the news or hit the CDC prevalence information and things like that.
And if I add something too, I mean, outbreaks it's a really good way to utilize this software, but think also if you are creating custom panels, let's say you are doing a winter panel for respiratory, and you also have a secondary spring, summer panel, you can still also monitor slowly your detection rate and then make sure when to turn on, turn off those winter panels, those summer panels. I mean, there's so many things that you can do with the software. Trying not only to optimize during an outbreak, but also optimizing testing algorithms based on seasonality, based on there's publications on this. We know that the circulation between population is very different from elderly versus pediatrics versus adults. You are creating custom panels for each of those different populations, and imagine then hey, should I add this bordetella that is picking up in outbreaks for my pediatrics? Like, there's so many things that you can do in order from the software, not just outbreaks.
Oh yeah, I've heard people, just from the panel refinement, looking at that and going, we're going to look at it monthly, quarterly, whatever it might be. We might not make a panel redesign in that moment, but maybe it's annualized, maybe it's quarterly. And sometimes we might not have to, but that's also great clinical education to show what's out there, what's happening.
One other thing too is that, of course, this is a really key tool to sort of make the entire environment for flexible testing. But this kind of tool is also really important even for your bloodstream infection assays and your resistance marker monitoring. And so now we have that as part of our family, our ecosystem, together with the LIAISON Plex system.
Yeah, I think it will help our customers make more data-driven decisions and feel more comfortable with what they're doing. So I know in almost every conversation I'm having here at ADLM ties into this prevalency software tool. I know everyone's very excited for it, but we don't have it widely available yet. It's coming later this year. But we do have some beta users. So I'm curious if you guys, even your own thoughts of how are they envisioning maybe using this in a real world setting and really extracting the value of flex and customization with this prevalence tool?
So for the feedback that I have received, it seems, again, optimization is the big one. And guidance as well. So they see it, as Michelle has mentioned, and we have mentioned even into our thinking from outbreaks, just to pivot whether the targets are needed to turn on, turn in, turn off. That's the way they're doing it. They're also looking into, very interesting, how to monitor the detection rates, just to understand whether or not some targets still belong into that panel. Whether or not, hey, it seems that, we are having less than 1% detection rate, maybe still actionable, but it's still not very relevant for this population, and then optimize it to that point. So what I've seen is, they are really, really good positive feedback from the beta testers that are using the prevalence. They still want more information as possible. The software development team has done an amazing job in doing really good reportable, that you can print out those reports and have them for review, for anything that you can do. It's actually customizable, even those reports that you add and include what you need. The cool features as well is that they are trying to include is pretty much even having some thresholds. Understanding, as you're talking about outbreaks, is what is the delta change that I have to really pay attention to, that is there's something going on in my
an alert.
Exactly,
right? Level.
Alert level, delta change to, you can custom between week or months in terms of understanding what is the delta change based on the prevalence for those detections, which also helps you navigate the outbreaks, navigates the turn on, turn off of the panels and things like that. So far it's been so good. We're excited to see it fully deployed. So
yeah, we can't wait. I know even our customers are asking for it right now.
Yes.
But the feedback I've heard too is just a lot of times it's around control and comfort with what we're doing, right? Because flex testing is a brand new, newish concept at this point in time. I probably need to stop saying brand new, but and with change, people are questioning: is this the right pathway? And they feel this is giving them more empowerment over those decision-making processes, trusting and believing what they're rolling out and deploying to make those actionable clinical decisions.
Yes, I see it too. Right now we have laboratory stewardship, right? Focus on the test utilization workflows. Then we have diagnostic stewardship when it comes to, I'll say the famous buzzword, the right test, the right patient, the right time. And then we have antimicrobial stewardship, which is the downstream of that. I see this tool to be within the panel stewardship side, which is between the laboratory and the diagnostic stewardship. Because the idea is that now you are selecting the right targets, which feeds into diagnostic initiatives in the diagnostic stewardship, which also feeds into the antimicrobial stewardship. So it's a concept, it's new, But I see it how then customers are going to be putting that in between the laboratory and the diagnostic stewardship, this tool, and use it as another panel stewardship initiatives to make sure that they do it the right way.
Absolutely. I know everyone in my name, our kids are about to go back to school, so now it's that waiting period of when does flu kick in. So
Yes.
I know.
Well, and I think there's the typical COVID summer increase
Yep,
happening
it's
right now for the
going
third
on
year in a
right
row.
now.
So
Correct.
anyway.
All right. Well, I know we're getting close to time here. So I think in this, for my last question, I really wanted to ask, if you could leave laboratories with one message about the future of syndromic testing and panel stewardship, what would that be?
You want to start?
I can start. I think that every patient is unique and every clinical situation is unique. And so diagnostics need to have flexibility, especially in these days when we are really needing to have that pendulum swing back and apply these diagnostic stewardship principles. And so with a tool like LIAISON and Flexing, and now the PrevaLENS software that kind of closes the gap in the ecosystem, we're actually providing labs with what they need to support them in their diagnostic stewardship initiatives moving forward.
Well said. Agreed.
Yeah, I think, again, I love that flexibility philosophy, just adding for what Michelle is just mentioning. But I just want to say, right, this is not just the destination of being just flexible. It's just the foundation for those patients. So you are bringing that foundation to be more, avoid the diagnostic noise, be more intentional in your testing, and also providing the best care for those patients. So it's important philosophy, I'll say, that I know it's growing more. So
Yeah, it's great to see. I mean, I felt like we were just scratching the surface with flex testing, and seeing us tackle it, not just from disease states, but software as well, has been very exciting for me to see, and I can't wait to get this tool in the hands. So with that, Dr. Gonzalez, Dr. Tab, thank you so much for joining me here on DiaSoren's Live at ADLM, and appreciate your time. Thank you.
thank you,
Okay,
everyone.
It was fun.